Oh, there we are. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ross Anderson. I'm a staff writer at The Atlantic, and I am excited to be here with the neuroscientist Susana Martinez-Conde and the magician Andrew Evans. We have a great panel for you today. We're going to be talking about all the different ways that magicians fool the brain and what their tricks can actually tell us about the brain. And this will not just be another chatty panel at Aspen. Andrew's actually going to do some tricks for us, both at the beginning and the end of the show. And with that, take it away, Andrew.
Let's do it. Let's do some magic. This is fantastic. All right. First of all, thanks for packing out the house. This is incredible. Wow, showing up for magic. All right. The kind of magic I really, in particular, love to do is magic that involves folks from the audience. And, this is going to be, like Ross mentioned, kind of more of an interactive day in a sense. And so I figure we're going to warm everyone up before we totally get into it. And I figure at a magic show, what better way to warm up than very simply with a deck of cards. Are folks familiar with the deck of cards? Cool, not enough apparently. Hi everyone, welcome to a magic show in the back. I see you. No, it's fine. If you're not familiar, we love these things, by the way, magicians. We love them, they're great. If you're not familiar, it's fine. I will explain. We got 52 unique individual pieces of paper. When they print them, they make them all different. That's so you can tell them apart. Okay, we got there. All right, so here, look, even though the cards themselves are all different, most card tricks start the exact same way, and that is very simply by having someone choose a card. But I'm not going to do that. I think it's too basic. So no, we're going to change it up. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Actually, I know we just handed out hair ties to everyone who came in here. That's for something a little later. But I would love to borrow a hair tie. It could be one that was handed out. But does anyone have one like on their wrist or something like that so we know it's normal, nothing? These are, oh yeah, beautiful. Here, let me see. Yeah, maybe the slightly thicker one. Was this one that was handed to you or was this yours? This was handed. Does anyone have one on their wrist perhaps? Maybe, here, could I see? Yeah, just in case. People are going to think we set something up with hair ties. Okay. Oh, maybe a little thin, though. I'm nervous about that. You'll see in a second. Wait, let me see what you have right there. Yeah. Is this Jill? Did I get that? Let me see. Perfect. Oh, yeah, we got a winner. Round of applause for Jill's hair tie right there. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take Jill's hair tie. I'm going to wrap the deck of cards in it, and then twice. That holds them together. In just a second, I'm going to take this deck of cards. I'm actually going to toss it around the room a little bit. So, yeah, if you have a drink in your hand, maybe put that down for like half a second. Good. Apparently that means take a final chug in the fourth row. I saw you, sir. Thank you. If the cards come to you, to the best of your ability, try to catch them. But then instead of picking a card, I'm just going to have you take the deck nice and tight to yourself so no one else can see. Crack it just to one spot, just like a book. Boop, just like that, and peek at a card, all right? So instead of picking cards, boop, sorry, sound effect, optional. But I mean, bonus points, go for it. All right, so peek at a card, memorize it, lock it in. Does that sound good? We kind of understand how to play? I see a nice confident nod coming from right here, the third row. What's your name, my friend? Scott, take this deck of cards for me. Take a peek, Scott, memorize one, let me know when you got it. But thank you for the boot, Scott, by the way. Amazing, beautiful boot. Scott, stand up for me. Stand up. Turn around, face this lovely audience. Toss that to anyone else. We'll go in the seats, though. But yeah, give it a tie back. Heads up, nice. Oh, did it stay together? Hit the ground? That's what Jill's hair tie is for. Thank you, Jill. All right, and what's your name? Carolyn. Excellent. You familiar with the deck of cards? Take a peek. Memorize one. Let me know when you got it. Boop. Hand it directly behind you. I saw someone excited right there. What's your name? Kayshawn. Take a peek. Memorize one, Kayshawn. Let me know when you've got it. Got it. Fantastic. Didn't boop, so I don't know. But you know what I mean? Kayshawn, stand up for me. Let's give a little love to this side of the audience. Toss it over there, Kayshawn. Yeah, go for it. Overhand, aggressive, what a catch. Oh, my goodness. That was amazing. What was your name? John. Take with or without the H? With. You're welcome for asking. All right, John, take a peek. Memorize one. Let me know when you've got it, John. Thank you for booping. John, stand up. Let's do one more on this side of the room. This is a lot of, over there somewhere. There we go. Someone's standing for it. That's a long, heads up. What a throw. What a catch. Nice.
Love that. All right. And what's your name, my friend? Xavier Perez. Xavier, take a peek. Let me know when you've got one, Xavier. You got it? I'll take it back here. Woo, good. I lost count. Was that 4? Did we 5? 4? Actually, I'll tell you what. If you peeked at the card, would you mind standing up for me real quick? Yep, stand up. Excellent. Good. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right over there. 5. Good. Thank you. Also, by the way, Jill, thank you so much for your hair tie. Jill, that obviously made this whole thing possible. Jill, I'm going to give you your hair tie back, obviously. But Jill,
I'm also going to give you an entire deck of cards. Compliments of Aspen. Here you go, Jill. That is for you. Pat, excellent. Although, thank you, but hold on. Stay standing, stay standing, stay standing. I got to point that out, Jill. That's not entirely selfless of me. Look, after this moment, sometimes people don't trust me. Go figure, magician. But if anyone has questions about those cards, go find Jill. Yeah, okay, here we go. But for the 4 of you, stay standing. That's Xavier right there. Scott, John, Carolyn, and one more time, Keishan. Beautiful, good. Here we go. For the 5 of you, in your heads, not out loud, in your heads, say the name of the card to yourself once, twice, 3 times. Beautiful, that locks it in. And now just for a second, don't focus on the name of the card. Instead, we're gonna build an image of that card. We're gonna do it together in your heads to start. Just imagine a white rectangle about this large. Yep, admittedly larger than the cards you were looking at. Good. And then create a little image, red or black. Start filling in the image you see. Numbers or letters in the corners. Good. Symbols in the center, clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. Thank you, Scott. Yep, you're up to speed. Beautiful. All right, if you had a court card, Jack, Queen, or King, extra colors, extra imagery. But to the best of your ability, see the image. Not the name, the image. Carolyn, yeah, beautiful. Coming in nice and strong. Interesting. Kayshawn, holding on to your wrist. Yep, cool. Just reading body language. We're good, we're good. In the back, John, yep, cool. Coffee still in hand. I feel it early. Yeah, tricky, Xavier. Thank you. All right, here we go. For the 5 of you, do not react. Don't respond. Don't give me any clues. Just listen. Good, it's on the interesting, cool. I'm getting a, yep, good, excellent, right there. Kayshawn, cool. Kayshawn, beautiful, right there. Yes, actually you can respond. Kayshawn, you're thinking of a black card, yes? Red card? Nailed it. All right, good. There we go. No, I'm just kidding. All right, you know what? We'll do them all. We'll do them for real. Here we go. Do not react. I'm getting 2 red cards, 3 black cards. We'll start with the red cards. Again, don't react. Good. For the red cards, these are a little higher. I'm getting the 10 of diamonds and the king of hearts. Beautiful. For the black cards, a little lower. I'm seeing the 3 of spades, 8 of spades, and I believe the 5 of clubs. Ooh, that's on the edge. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I just named your card, would you please have a seat? Yep, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. Carolyn, that is 5. Beautiful. 5 out of 5. That ain't bad. And with that, let's talk about the mechanics of magic. Wow. There we go.
Wow. I'm canceling the panel. We just want more magic from Andrew. Susanna, you really helped launch this field of neuromagic, which is kind of the scientific study of illusions. And I was hoping that you could tell us what you noticed through that lens while you were watching Andrew.
Well, there's a lot to unpack. We are not going to be disclosing magic secrets necessarily, but something that always strikes me about magic is how much there is to it. I have actually my long-term collaborator and co-author is here, Steve Magnick, and we did launch this discipline between the 2 of us, and we have often discussed how magicians build a sort of like an onion with all of these different layers, and even if you were trying to peel away, you may be able to peel away a couple of layers during the performance, but there is no way that you're going to get at the heart of the matter. And in fact, there is so much that goes into a magic performance. There's perceptual elements, there is cognitive elements, attention, decision-making, memory. There is an emotional aspect to it as well. So in fact, we have postulated that if you were to understand from a neuroscientific standpoint exactly what is going on in the brain during a magic show, you will have unveiled the neural basis of consciousness. That's how big it is. That's the holy grail of neuroscience. And all of that happens during a magic performance. So there is definitely a lot to it. There is the relationship of the magician with the audience. There is the use of certain objects. One of the magicians, actually the first magician that we collaborated with was James Randi, the amazing Randi. He died a few years ago. And he taught us a lot. He introduced us to many magicians, but Penn and Teller, McCain, Apollo Robbins. And he taught us so much about how magicians go about their art. And something that he brought up more than once is about the power of assumptions, that we make assumptions in real life as well as in a magic show, and that is because we don't have the neural machinery or neither the hardware nor the software to parse and to process all the information that is constantly bombarding our senses, so we have to take shortcuts. And we talk about how magicians, in fact, they manage to use these shortcuts to sort of hack the brain, and that they don't use different processes, but the same processes that we apply in everyday life. Magicians have been able over millennia to really take advantage of those. And going back to the power of assumptions, something that James Randi used to say is that you think that you know everyday objects and you make certain assumptions about them, and also if somebody is bending spoons or keys as a part of a performance, and they may or may not claim that they have supernatural powers as they do that, part of what they rely on is that the audience, they think they know how spoons work. That's not necessarily the case. A spoon is much more bendable than you might think, because if you bend your spoon, then you cannot use it, so you tend to not bend spoons like it may happen in a performance. But here, even today, we have, we have hair ties, we have decks of cards, objects that we are familiar with, and those I will not say anything further, but but that may play into the performance itself, and there's definitely a lot to go through. One important, I think, at the core of most magic performances is what magicians call misdirection. And that also, particularly the misdirection of attention, which is basically attentional management. So when we think, I like this metaphor that both magicians and neuroscientists use, which is the spotlight of attention. And we think of attention as sort of like a spotlight that illuminates whatever we're paying attention to and highlights that part of our experience. In reality, from a neural perspective, it's kind of like the opposite, because when we pay attention to something, what our brain does, instead of highlighting what we're paying attention to, the brain diminishes, inhibits, suppresses everything else. So paying attention means suppressing everything else that we're not interested in, and that's what magicians do. The brain is the magician's main confederate. So magicians are really not trying to distract us. They are directing our attention to specific moments in time, to specific places on the stage, to even our internal dialogue by asking questions. And so by directing our attention in specific ways, the magician is ensuring that the brain suppresses everything else.
Andrew, I won't ask you to give up your secrets on that fabulous trick, but I did wonder, Susanna's metaphor of the onion I thought was really interesting, and whether it's that trick or different tricks, I think maybe a common misperception I have when I'm watching magic is I think there's just that one moment that I need to key in on to see the switch or whatever. And is it more right that actually these things are layered and there's like several different moments?
I would say good magic in particular is deeply layered.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, there's a theory in magic called closing doors theory, which is we assume that the audience is smart, first of all, not dumb, and that people are trying to figure out how this whole thing is happening while it's happening. And that's another thing that I can use to my advantage. So I know how people are thinking and roughly when they're thinking things during a routine. So I then design the routine to close that theory that they might have at a certain point. And that's one layer of the onion. And throughout the course of the routine, I'm sort of closing these doors and eliminating the different theories that people might be thinking at any given point. And often you get to the end of a trick, and there's the final thing. They're like, okay, well, wasn't that, or that? So it has to be, it's like, okay, it's in his left hand. And then I say, and if you wouldn't mind, just have a seat. And they're like, oh, shit, the left hand's and then the trick's down, and it's like, well, then I don't know. It's magic, you know? So it's absolutely, layering is important. It also helps hide the method. It also makes, I'd say, the feeling of magic and wonder much more powerful when you really can't go A to B and say, well, if it was that, then that's probably how it was done. So that layering is beautiful. Yeah.
Susanna, magicians are a pretty secretive lot. And I wonder what it was like in the course of your research. Like, how did you convince them to let you into their world and kind of maybe tell you some of their secrets?
Yeah. Well, we were very fortunate, and this all started with Steve Macknick and I were organizing this academic conference. It was the annual conference for the Association of the Scientific Study of Consciousness, and and we wanted to have it in Phoenix at the time. That's where we were living at the time. But the board of the association, they wanted to have it in Las Vegas. And so anyway, we said, okay, we'll have it in Las Vegas. And we were thinking, well, is there any way that we can, being that this is an academic conference, is there any way that we can go beyond just being very specific and only reaching out to academics? Can we reach out to the wider public and have a bit of more of an impact? And we were thinking about, we have been running an illusions contest for a number of years, and we're thinking, well, maybe some other kind of contest, but it didn't seem to fit. And then as we were having these conversations, we're going up and down the strip in Las Vegas and seeing these big signs of magic shows, Penn and Teller, David Copperfield, Lance Barton, and we were like, okay, the city is telling us we need to do a special symposium in which we're inviting magicians, because we realized then that just as vision scientists, we often look at what painters and other visual artists have done and how they have, what insights they have about perception. We figure out what magicians are the artists of cognition. And if we bring them in and have a conversation with them, maybe we both can learn from each other. Maybe we can tell magicians about the scientific method, and magicians can tell us about their tricks to manipulate attention, and we can have a very good collaboration. So that's what, we didn't know any magicians at the time, but we knew the late philosopher Dan Dennett. So this was a conference that brought together philosophers, psychologists, and neuroscientists. So we were talking to Dan Dennett, and he said, you know, I can introduce you to James Randi because we're both skeptics. We've been in radio shows together. So he got us in touch with James Randi, and he loved the idea. And James Randi introduced us to Penn and Teller, Mac King, and Johnny Thompson, the great Thompsoni, who also died a few years ago. And Penn and Teller introduced us to Apollo Robbins. And those people that I just mentioned, with the two of us as neuroscientists, we wrote our first academic article that was published in Nature Reviews Neuroscience about why neuroscientists should care about magic. But you do make a good point that not every magician was thrilled with the idea. And we were fortunate because...
you can name names.
Well, I don't know, maybe later. Just having James Randi's endorsement, that was a big thing for us. So it made us automatically more trustable and respectable. But some magicians do take they do firmly believe that a magician should take their secrets to the grave. But I would also say that we didn't know it at the time, but the magicians that we happened to collaborate with initially, they were all sort of cognitive science fans, and they were reading, the popular science articles about how the brain works, how the mind works, because they were not just magicians. They were, a lot of them were magic theorists, so they were deeply interested in why magic works in the mind of the spectator.
Picking up on that paper that you wrote, saying, hey, everybody, you should actually pay attention to magicians. It can really tell us something. Give us something that you learned about the brain working with magicians that you could not have learned with kind of the straightforward methods of neuroscience.
Well, I think it's a bit more nuanced than that, because as I mentioned, it's not like magicians have a secret door to the brain. We both in a magic show and in the neuroscience lab, we are there's a lot of overlap in what we're trying to get at. We try to get at in different ways and for different purposes, but there is a lot of overlap. The issue is that we have been working in parallel for a long time, and sort of like as neuroscientists, we have often been reinventing the wheel, and sometimes we arrive to the same conclusions, like the spotlight of attention. We both, magicians and neuroscientists, talk about that, and concepts like change blindness, inattentional blindness. Those come from cognitive science, but magicians have been using them in their shows independently. So it's not like we couldn't do what magicians do in a different way from a neuroscience perspective. It's just that we can save a lot of time by just pooling our resources. And conversely, magicians, they try things, and that one of our magicians that we collaborated with, I forget who it was exactly, but he said, for me, every performance is an experiment, because I see what works and I see what doesn't, and I keep what works, and that so I have the chance to experiment. So in an informal way, that is true, but the scientific method is a very powerful framework in which you can accelerate that process of what works and what doesn't. And to give you a couple of specific examples, we did a study with Apollo Robbins that he had a feeling that when he was using a curved motion his specialty is pickpocketing people, and that so whether he was using a curved motion or a straight motion, he felt that the curved motion was more effective at getting people's attention misdirected. So we that's something that we did not know scientifically, and in fact, it led us to identify the different kinds of eye movements. So first off, he was correct, and we were able to identify different kinds of eye movements that went with these two types of motions. So we were able to first show scientifically that he was correct, and then go further and say why he was correct. But sometimes it doesn't pan out. We were very excited about a theory that Teller had about the most effective type of motion that a magician could use during the cups and balls trick. And that this is a famous trick. You have 3 cups and 3 balls, and they appear and disappear from below the cups. And Teller felt that when you do a pouring motion with a cup and you drop a ball from the cup, that would be the most powerful motion in terms of misdirection, because maybe we evolved to care a lot about falling objects and gravity, because that has been with us for forever, from the beginning of evolution. And we were very intrigued about that hypothesis, and we said, okay, we have to try it. And it turns out that wasn't the most misdirection. It was very good, but it wasn't the best.
Andrew, I'm curious if you're one of these magicians that sort of like pays attention to the journals of cognitive science and is kind of keeping your eye on that stuff. And if not, or in conjunction with that, if you could tell us a little bit about your experimental process when you're kind of perfecting a trick.
Definitely. So first of all, I absolutely am. I mean, funny enough, right? My background is engineering and design, and so I studied mechanical and civil engineering in college. Ton of theater as well. So all of this stuff was swirling. Magic was always a hobby for me from a very young age, but never something I thought I was going to do as a career. So that's almost more recent, and so I love approaching magic from the lens of design and engineering. My brand of design is human-centered design. That's sort of what I studied and what I worked in for a while. And I think magic is just audience-centered design. It's not an art form, really, that exists in a closed room. Sure, you can practice techniques in front of a mirror. You can become the most skilled card technician. But for me, that's not yet magic until you put it in front of an audience and adjust it so that it creates a fooling moment of deception and wonder for someone. So magic as an art, for me, doesn't really exist without the audience. And therefore, if you're going to better the craft, you have to experiment. And every time you're in front of an audience, that's an opportunity to experiment, not necessarily with the rigor of the scientific method, but so many things that I'm getting as feedback that are not necessarily, quantifiable, but it's where's the laughter? Where can you feel people leaning in? Where do you feel the real deep silence followed by the inhale, the you know, because so much of what I'm doing with these tricks is not just trying to fool, but it's the rhythm, it's the energy, it's the emotions, and all of that. And those are the things that feel like are constantly being experimented on when you have an audience.
Do you have like a focus group, like some buddies or that you like try stuff out on?
You know, magic is really hard to prototype because,
Really?
well, yeah, because if it doesn't fool, it's not magic. It's like some weird dance. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm gonna make a scarf appear and they're like, buddy, it's sticking out of your left arm. That's just embarrassing for one, but it's also not really a trick, and it's not really what I'm looking. That's not feedback that's helpful. So I do have a small group of friends, both some magicians and other people who have seen me over the years, that can give that early feedback where they're like, I don't know if that's even going to be fooling. But then I'd say the real learning comes after a trick reaches that threshold where it's going to fool, and then it's about how does the audience receive it, and how can that be tightened to give it the most impact.
Andrew, I was hoping that you could tell us a bit about forcing mechanisms or forcing maneuvers. I don't even know the exact term of art. And you can talk about them in as much detail as you care to, but these are things that you're kind of robbing the audience of agency.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Magic is such a funny art form. Okay, so we're talking about robbing the audience of agency. We're talking about manipulation and deception. Those are all usually very negative terms that result in like a lot of therapy. You know what I mean? And that's what people are paying money to see when they come to a magic. They're like, here's my money, please manipulate me, right? To see me. So there is this funny relationship. But one I would say is the audience and the performer kind of enter, I would say, this tacit contract, which is that the type of deception is playful and fun, not manipulative, or certainly not exploitative. Like, you know, we're not here to exploit people. At least that's not my brand of magic. I'm doing it for laughs and fun and wonder. When it comes to forcing, I would say this is actually what Susanna was also talking about with kind of the spotlight of attention, which is absolutely right. And so much of this, whether it's misdirection or forcing, I'm very tightly controlling that spotlight, but I don't ever want the audience to know that I'm shining a light. Right? If you even perceive that, even if you don't know how I'm doing what I'm doing, if you perceive that I could be doing something, it's a little less magical. So for instance, with forcing, if I say go ahead and choose a card and you feel really rushed, you're like, oh, I think I probably could have chosen any card, but also that was a little odd. What was that about, right? That feeling doesn't feel totally fair, even if you didn't think there was anything I could do. So when it comes to something like forcing, I think of it more like the movie Inception. I want you to really believe that you took that choice yourself, and the more that I can design that moment to be one that you feel true agency, even if you don't have it, the more impactful it's going to be. And even just as a moment of misdirection, right? This subtle thing I mentioned earlier about if you think that the only way this trick could be done is something's in my left hand, if I say, and of course, my left hand is empty, that feels manipulative in a way. And you're like, oh man, he knew what I was thinking. Oh, it's a little icky. Versus if I just say, and is there anyone out there who, you know, so I'm not saying my hand's empty, but I'm doing this gesture so people see it's empty, and they're like, oh shit. You know, so those are the kinds of choices I'd say I'm making as a magician, where I am very tightly controlling that spotlight, but hopefully in a way that doesn't feel like it's a heavy-handed touch.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah, show, don't tell. Absolutely.
Well, Susanna, bring that back to neuroscience for us, because is there a way where just in our everyday lives we're kind of overestimating the amount of agency that we have?
Yeah, all the time. And in fact, from a neuroscience standpoint, there are now these classic experiments, and they have been replicated in a number of ways. I'm talking about choice blindness, and that and the basic setup is that this is done in a laboratory, but it has been done in supermarkets and in a bunch of other settings. But the original experiment, they were showing these two pictures of two people, two portraits, to an experimental participant, and ask that person to choose whichever one they thought was most attractive. So they would pick whichever one, and then the experimenter would turn both pictures upside down, and then ask them to pick up the one that they just chose, the one that they thought was most attractive. What the people participating didn't know was that they had been trained by a magician in black art. Actually, it's a type of sleight of hand, and so they ended up picking up the opposite to their choice. So they would pick up that photo, and first off, 30% or so of the participants did not know that there had been a change. So we call that change blindness. But now the interesting part happened, because of those who did not notice the change, the experimenters would ask them, okay, so That's the photo that you like the best. Now, can you tell me why you like that one better than the other one? And that's a trick question because they didn't pick that one, but now they're asked, why did you choose it? They didn't choose it. So you might think, well, they're going to say, I don't know, right? They're not going to be able to have any explanation. The opposite, complete opposite happened. People would have all sorts of explanation. Well, she reminds me of my aunt, and or like I would totally have approached her at a bar. I like her earrings. The one they chose had no earrings, and all sorts of explanations. So we in this experiment has been replicated with political surveys, with tasting tests at supermarkets. So we basically our opinion of ourselves is that we think about what we're going to do and then we do it. But oftentimes that's not the case. We do whatever for whatever reason, and or for no reason, and then we justify our actions and our choices to ourselves. So we think that we have agency, but the fact is that this is post hoc. We're justifying to ourselves choices that we didn't make, or that they were random choices, but we come up with good reasons for them, which is kind of scary. And this is where some of issues like cognitive dissonance go into play, and that some people may have a strong opinion, and then we see this in science communication. It used to be the science communicators used to think, okay, well, the general public, they don't understand science, so they make bad decisions. So let's just give them all the facts, and when they have all the facts and understand exactly how you go from A to B to C, they're going to make the right decision. Doesn't work like that. Because we don't decide based on fact. We decide mostly based on emotion. And if you identify with whatever opinion you have, political or otherwise, doesn't matter, you strongly identify with that belief, no amount of data is going to move you because you're not deciding rationally. And in terms, and more generally, you were asking about agency in life. This is a big debate in neuroscience. Do we actually have free will or not?
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is that we don't, but it's not like I have a choice.
Yeah. Still processing that. I'm really hesitant to ask this next question because I don't want my bubble burst, but one of my favorite viral animal videos is someone doing a kind of a version of the cup and the ball trick for a chimpanzee behind glass, and the chimpanzee has this like just wonderful reaction, just like explodes with sort of joy and wonder. I really want that to be true. Can animals experience magic?
Well, you can definitely trick an animal, and if we have any dog owners here, you know that you can trick them, like you're throwing them off the stick. I'm really throwing it now, and the dog takes off, and that. So you can definitely trick an animal, but I think, and I think Andrew maybe can tell us more about this. That magic goes beyond misdirection, and I think that if anything, misdirection is the path to experience wonder eventually. So that is actually, that would be my question, and it has not been solved scientifically because, for one, we don't really understand how wonder happens in the human brain, let alone the animal brain. Do animals experience wonder? Perhaps apes, chimpanzees, bonobos, and so on, are able to enjoy magic just as we do, or like a very young human child might do. I don't know if dogs and cats can experience that kind of wonder, but I think it's going to be very species dependent.
Andrew actually runs a magic speakeasy in the Bay Area, and it just occurred to me, there are a lot of wealthy dog owners there. You could curate a show.
You know, Steve Martin, amazing comedian, also an incredible magician. He did a bit, and now I'm forgetting. Someone's got to fact check me. I think he did comedy for dogs on TV, but I feel like he would also do magic for dogs as like a bit on TV at some point. But yeah, maybe that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing just about kind of, well, what you mentioned about wonder, right? So magic and misdirection as this conduit to something larger, which is certainly what interests me, is how do we feel a sense of, for me, wonder is about curiosity. It's about expansion. It's about openness, right? And I'm not claiming that the things I'm doing on stage are real, and so you should be curious about that. Like, is mind reading real? Is that? But I do think when you see things you can't totally explain, and that then sparks other forms of curiosity. Like, well, what else is out there that maybe I'm not looking at or exploring in the same way? So I think that magic can be that starting point, and then that broader sense of wonder is such a beautiful thing. And if folks walk away from a show feeling that, I mean, mission accomplished.
And I think that also gets at the issue of magic as an art form, which I think that generation of wonder, that's, I think, is part of the nature of the art of magic. And in a way, I think it's kind of tragic for magicians that as artists, because if you go see, I don't know, the ballet, or you go to a rock concert, or you can tell just by looking at the people how much work they put into it. And you're like, okay, this is months and years of practice and perseverance, but magicians have to make it look like nothing is going on, like there's nothing to it. Right. So you don't really get to appreciate from the point of view of the audience that magicians are really like music virtuosos, and that we have interacted with a lot of magicians, and they often have something on their hands, and they're constantly practicing hours and hours and hours a day. And that's, of course, something that you don't get to experience at a magic show, to see behind the scenes.
I wanted to ask you both about trends in magic, like how that kind of changes decade to decade, what people are into. And Andrew, you were recently, and I just wonder if that reveals certain like cultural longings that are kind of present. And you were telling me before this session that people are really into mentalists right now, and I was wondering if you'd indulge us by kind of speculating as to why.
Absolutely. I mean, beyond even speculating, I can tell you my own personal journey there, which is, I mentioned engineering and design. So a lot of the magic that I was most known for and most drawn to 10, 15 years ago were a lot of the big illusions, and also my background's in theater, so I loved creating these narratives and shows with multiple people on stage, getting cut in half, levitating, and all that kind of stuff. And then once the pandemic hit, I had just signed a lease, built out a whole brick and mortar space, and then 6 months later, boom, had to shut the doors, right? So I started doing virtual shows online, and I was mainly for companies. We weren't really doing ticketed shows, but it was all through Zoom. And I mean, a couple thoughts here, depending on how much time we have. But one, very quickly I learned the only way to make that engaging was to use the people on the other side of the screen as much as possible. One, it made it feel fair, because anything you were seeing through a screen you would question. This was even really before AI. It's just camera tricks, right? So using the immediacy of people made the magic feel real. Or, I mean, not real, but impossible. And it also made it feel more engaging. So then we come back from the pandemic. Unfortunately, a lot of my team had already moved away at that point, so I was more of a solo show. And I just brought that same approach into the live shows. And I found that it was so much more engaging. And so mainly that's mentalism, though, because it means I'm bringing you in, I'm having you look at cards, I'm reading your thoughts, I say, who's your childhood best friend, first kiss, all of that. So I think the trend, at least that I'm latching onto, is, and it's in the form of magic, it is mentalism, but it's about interaction. It's about participation. It's about immediacy. It's about presence. And I think that especially after this world where we were so isolated, and in a lot of ways still are, that immediacy and knowing that the magic show is happening only in that way for that night, only because of those people in that room together, and then once it's gone, it's gone. I think there's something really beautiful about that period, but especially at this moment in time.
He's really telling like an emotional story there, and I wonder, is there, like, when you've studied magic in this really kind of systematic way, are there specific emotions that magicians play on again and again and again?
Well, I would say that the humor is a very important emotion for magicians, and that Johnny Thompson used to say that when the audience laughs, time stops, and the magician can do anything. Nobody's going to notice. Because emotions are just so powerful drivers of our attention. But I think it's also important for the magician that there are some basics. And it is true that magic has always been at the forefront of engineering and technology. And magicians were using electricity and magnetism when society didn't, it was, they were not well known or understood at the larger society level. But at the core, there are, I think, parts of magic that are perennial, that and have always been there. The relationship of the magician with the audience. There's developing this empathy, and that this communication and charm, because the magician doesn't want the audience to be confrontational, and that ultimately, if the goal is to generate curiosity and wonder and fun, it's you don't want to have an adversarial audience that is like, okay, I'm just going to try and find out where the secret method is. So in that sense, the magician is sort of like a teacher, right? A good teacher. With a good teacher, the students want the teacher to succeed, to be a good teacher and to be proud of the teacher. And an ideal audience also wants the magician to succeed and to help the magician create this communal experience.
Well, speaking of the magician as teacher, Andrew graciously decided that he's not just going to fool us today, that he's actually going to teach us how to do a magic trick, and that's how we're going to close.
Okay. All right. So I'll tell you, and actually, this is also to answer kind of another question that you had brought up. But for me, so much of what magic is how do you make something feel the most magical version of itself? And we've been talking about this in so many different ways. But the idea of using common things and normal objects is great because, first of all, I still love illusions and love performing them and will continue performing them forever. But when you have something that you're familiar with, and you can do something impossible with it, I feel like that creates this bigger delta between reality that we know and this impossibility that we're experiencing. And also it's why doing magic in the Bay Area is amazing right now, because you have so many smart people, engineers spending all their lives figuring out answers and all of that. And then when they're presented with like an analog mystery, it's just like, what is happening? This makes no sense. Oh my God. And especially I go to companies to perform sometimes, and then I'm doing it on their turf, and they're just like, there's no way, there's no trapdoors, there's no wires, like, what is happening? But okay, so what we did, and this crowd is awesome and huge and actually larger than I think we expected, so I don't think everyone has these props, but when you came in, hopefully you were given a couple hair ties, ideally one black one, one colored one. If not, and you have a hair tie, you can still play along. If you see someone next to you for the first part of this, you're only going to need one hair tie, so maybe share. But and I realized I don't think I have hair ties. That's in.
There you
go. See? Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to show you this. I'll show you this trick first, then we're going to break it down so you can perform it, but also learn a little bit about why it works. And actually, Suzanne, I'd be curious if you have any other insight into kind of how this is working from a neuroscience perspective. And we're not going to get. You can still see this though, I think, right, on my fingers. Okay, so truly you do this with a hair tie or a rubber band that you have. You can borrow this, that's even more powerful. But what's amazing is so you put the hair tie on just 2 fingers. I'll show you first, and then like I said, we'll walk through it. And you can see it's really on there. Nothing fake, nothing phony, just on these 2 fingers. And all I'm gonna do is snap, and you can watch, just like that, it jumps over to the other 2 fingers. I know. But you know what? Acrobatics, it's elastic. We all know that. Maybe it was launching in the air at such a high speed. And I get it. Skepticism. So let's add the real impossibility. Houdini style here, a little moment of escape. I'll take a second hair tie, lock it onto my fingers like that. Truly solid. No way for that to get off. You can see that's truly on there. No way. Absolute impossibility. And if we snap, just like that, still goes to the other side, just like that. All right. So I love open mouth. You can close the jaw, ma'am. Thank you. Good, exactly. All right, so I'm going to walk you through how that works. And this is pretty fun. Like I said, even more powerful if you borrow a hair tie when you're doing this. And actually, you know what, here, let me give you one you can play along. Do I have an, I do, I did have an extra just in case. Okay, so here's how this is going to go. To start, go ahead and put that hair tie on. You know what's funny, actually? I'm right-handed. I do magic left-handed. And it's because I was reading books and watching videos, and I was mirroring the images that I was seeing rather than anyways. Okay, so it might be easier for you to put this on your left hand and snap with your right hand. But for me, I'm more comfortable putting it on my right hand and snapping with my left. Okay, So the first thing we were doing is, as much as the hair tie is established as a normal object, the gesture that I need to use to get away with this is not. So I began by snapping this on my fingers, and what I was saying while I was doing that is just normal hair tie. You can see it doesn't come on or off. What I'm doing right here is called conditioning. So I'm conditioning you to know that this gesture of snapping is nothing more than what it is, snapping on and snapping off. And as I slowly started to turn my hand around this way to the audience, I'll do it from the back view. Here's what I was doing. I was saying normal hair tie, just like that. You can see it's all the way on. And on the very last time, I pulled it and put all 4 of my fingers into the hair tie on the back, yeah? Now, I'll show you this from the front because you can't see that. From the front, it still just looks like it's on these 2. Okay? And now, as some of you have already experienced, simply opening your hand allows that hair tie to pivot and go over to the other 2 fingers. You see that? So here, again, take a look. Again, I'll go from the back. Without even the full moment of misdirection or conditioning, I snap back and forth once, twice, 3 times. And on the last time, I don't release it. I just pull, put all 4 fingers inside, and place it on the back of the knuckles. Do we see that? Okay? So again, from the front, it's only on 2. From the back, it's around your knuckles. And when you open your hand, on the what? Yeah. Do we get it? I'll hang out afterwards to make sure people get it if you don't mind. But let me show you the important part. I'm going to tell you about the traps. Here's what you're going to run into. 2 big traps. 2 big traps. 1, you're going to try to do this fast. Speed is the enemy of magic. I have always said this. Speed is the enemy of magic. If you do something fast, our attention is drawn to it. If you do something at the same slow speed that you've been doing for the past 2 seconds, no one thinks anything special is happening. So again, notice I'm not doing this. I'm not saying we've got this hair tie on the hands just like that. Notice how much you saw exactly what I did, right? Versus I'm going slow. I say we got a hair tie on these 2 fingers. You can see it's truly just on these 2. Snaps right there. You now know what to look for, and I bet that was still invisible to you, okay? So now that it's there, by opening your hand, the trick is going to be done. But you got to give yourself agency as the magician, and that's where the snap comes in. So again, we're here. We say, you can see this is just on these 2 fingers. Nothing tricky, nothing fancy, and yet if I snap, it goes to the other 2. Truly, that snap is like kind of important. It gives a moment for the magic to happen, all right? So that's how that first bit works. So again, the pitfalls you're going to fall into, you're going to try to go fast, and you're going to feel real guilty when you do this, all right? Don't feel guilty. The audience will feel that guilt, and they will know something is going on. But again, we're right here. So the second half, can I use that one, Susanna? Awesome. Here's the beauty of this. The second half of the trick, you take a second hair tie, and you put the hair tie on your first 2 fingers first. Second hair tie goes on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I twist it just like that so you can see it locked on your fingers. The beauty of this first hair tie can still pivot just like that onto the other 2. So take a look. The trick is truly the same. What I'm doing here is I'm snapping 1, 2. On that third one, I pull back. All 4 fingers with the other hair tie go in just like that. And easy enough, just like that, it still goes on to the other side. All right? So there you go. A little magic to take home with you from Aspen.
Man. That was great. We do have time for one question. This gentleman right here shot his hand up. We've got a mic coming to you. Oh, right there. Sorry. No. Back. Yeah.
This is fabulous, by the way. I'm Kurt Malkoff. I'm a PhD clinical psychologist, and many years ago I was very interested in the work of J.B. Rhine and the Duke parapsychology groups in Stanford. Speak to that issue of extrasensory perception. James Randi said he had $1 million if he couldn't magically replicate what scientists were saying was happening. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is that anything, and James Randi was truly an excellent spokesperson for this, and before him, Houdini and others. But there's always been this, I think, beautiful connection between magic and skepticism. And James Randi would tell you, and I will tell you, that anything that you experience that in somebody that claims to have paranormal powers or extrasensory perception or so on, if you can do the same with within the non-physical laws, then I'm a big believer in Occam's razor. And if you can have an explanation that is scientific, that makes sense, that matches the natural world, we don't need to have a pseudoscientific explanation. And I think that this is actually one of the reasons that we study magic, is that I think that it is so important, and Andrew has demonstrated it now beautifully, even something that is as simple as 2 rubber bands, and it feels like magic, but there's an actual very simple explanation for that. So I think it's just so important to identify magical thinking in ourselves and in society, and especially now in the era that we're living with AI, and we don't know what to trust in the media versus not. And magic and the exploration of magic from a neuroscientific perspective, I think at the core of it, we're trying to promote critical thinking.
Folks, give it up for Susanna and Andrew.